Hello and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here, as always, to talk with you guys about mind-body symptoms. Um, it never ceases to amaze me how much we kind of have to start at the beginning with this because so many people in society don't even understand what a mind-body issue is. So I'm just going to start at the beginning. I had 8 years of chronic back pain. It was every day, every single second. Couldn't figure out what it was. Of course, went the medical route, went to PT, all of those things. And I didn't know the stuff that I now know. What I now know is that, well, I got it really from Dr. John Sarno. He was an MD at NYU who wrote several books about how the mind can alter what goes on in your body. Now, having looked at this for many years since, it's actually very obvious to me now. But at the time, even knowing that, I didn't know how far it could go. For some reason, I thought, yeah, the mind can alter the body some, but not that much. It is a very wide range what your mind can do to your body. So, we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about the range of things that can happen. We're going to talk about how to think in ways that can change things. Because what ended up happening is once I got that information from Sarno, I started to get better. I couldn't get better as fully as I wanted to, though, because there were certain things that were lingering, questions that I still had, answers that I needed. And that's really what tonight is all about. What I found got me better was the information of Sarno and then me asking really good questions and finding a way to get good answers. So that's why I offer this. Everything I offer is designed around what I wished had been out there or what I think needs to be out there. So this Q&A is part of it. Your job is to ask any questions you have. Because if you have the same questions and they go unanswered, that means your mindset stays in the exact same place. If we get you an answer that is to your satisfaction, then things can shift. And so that's my job, is to provide the answers to your satisfaction. I want you to follow up with more questions if you have them. Okay. Now, let's just get into briefly how I can help you. Of course, I can help you by answering questions tonight, but also on my website, which is www.crushingdoubt.org. There are some of my resources that you can come to and order at any point in time. If you're in the middle of the night, you want information, you can order my seminars. My teaching seminars are 8 sessions. They're 75 minutes long each, which totals 12 hours of really good information that I wished I could have had back when I was suffering. And it's all designed to reduce your doubt, because doubt is the thing that cements symptoms in place. So if we answer these questions and you've got good answers, that brings down doubt and it opens the door for the symptoms to start to move more. And when you see them on the move, you can understand what they're about more. So you can order the seminars. That's one way to get help. I also realized after doing the seminars, people would, come to the seminars and they'd say they were great. And I thought they were great. But then very frequently, people still had ongoing questions and I didn't have a way to deal with those questions. This was even before the Q&A. So the Q&A is one way that people can deal with those questions, but I also have my membership group, which you can sign up for on my website. And those are Zoom calls. They're a little bit like this, but they're even more in depth because we can have such a back and forth that we can get a lot further in one sitting. So if people have questions about that and want to know more, you can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. Let's start getting to questions though. And while we start to do that, I'm going to answer these questions in a particular format, and it's around my system. So I wanted to just briefly explain what that is. What I found with Sarno is he helped to describe what's going on in emotional life that can lead to symptoms. But that wasn't describing everything that I was experiencing, and I needed more answers. What I found is that there are actually 3 reasons for mind-body symptoms. Emotions is one of them, and I've even expanded that work to describe what happens with emotions and how it can lead to symptoms and what to do about it. But there's also doubt, which is the thing that cements symptoms in place. The emotions tends to lead to onsets and upticks in symptoms, but doubt is what cements it in place. And then there's something that I call power, which is about your relationship with yourself. I'll get into what all of this is. But these 3 different ways of understanding symptoms, they all come from 3 different sources, 3 different functions that symptoms have. In the emotions column, just as Sarno described, and by the way, Sarno didn't, there's nothing that he said was wrong, but I found ways to expand on it that have been helpful. So in the emotions column, why are these called columns? Let me get into that. This is from an exercise that I call the mind body map, where I have people take a sheet of paper and just divide it into 3 columns so that we can look at these 3 different ways of understanding symptoms. The emotions column describes how your body can generate symptoms that the mind starts to cover over whatever's going on for you emotionally. It's a distraction. In the doubt column, it's all about your thinking. If your thinking stays in the same place, your symptoms can stay in the same place. So seemingly chronic issues are dealt with in the doubt column. And in the power column, you're dealing with your relationship with you. So if there's a conflict with you that's standing in the way of your getting better, you're going to hit a symptom plateau where it just kind of stays there at a lower level. So I have ways of recognizing which is going on when. When I'm talking to people in this Q&A, I'm going to be talking about the columns and how they apply to them. And of course, you can ask questions about that as we go. Let me say hi to some people. I'm sorry I'm late on that. Rita, good to see you. Scotty Styles, good to see you as well. Full Flourish is with us. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for saying hi, Scotty, and for all of the great emojis. And Rita says, hi, Dan. Good to see you. Cody Albright has joined us. Joel Bassist and Bun Barina is here as well. Thanks so much for joining on Instagram. Now I've got to say some highs on YouTube. Okay, Dorisa says, hi, Dan and everybody. Good to see you, Dorisa. And now let's get into some questions. I'm going to take one from Instagram first. So Full Flourish says, how to heal the anxiety wall and finding guidance in getting off antidepressant medication. Okay, so this is one of those moments where if we were in group, I would ask you a question, which I'm going to do here anyway, but we may need to do some follow-up. So when you say how to heal the anxiety wall, I want to know more what you mean by the term anxiety wall. And part of the reason I ask this is that words, they mean so much. And if I'm going to help you change your mind, I need to know what you're thinking. So when you say anxiety wall, the first thing I wanted to say, and this could be addressing what you're saying, I'm not sure, but I did want to say that I think of anxiety and depression and all psychological issues as symptoms, just like a headache is a symptom, just like irritable bowel is a symptom, just like back pain is a symptom. And so if we can figure out in the columns, what are our symptoms telling us, we can find a way around that. So when you say how to heal the anxiety wall, I do need to know what anxiety wall means to you. I'm understanding it. I'll just tell you I'm understanding, and then we'll see if I have the right idea. But I think what you're describing is that this anxiety is really stopping you. It's a wall. Now, if I don't have that right, it doesn't matter what I'm going to say next because I don't have that. So Full Flourish, let's first follow up on that. And then I can give you guidance in getting off of antidepressant medication. In fact, I've done it. Never thought I would take antidepressants, but there was a certain circumstance that led me to take them at one point. And when I was getting off of them, it was a challenge because it was a trigger to me. Now, a trigger is something in the environment where something we do makes us believe certain things. When I was weaning off of the antidepressant medication, I had all sorts of expectations about what this was going to do, what this was going to mean. And those expectations and those thoughts led to symptoms. So when I conquered that, I got past the trigger and was able to do it. So I actually have tons I can tell you about this, Full Flourish, and I can definitely help you with the anxiety and certainly getting off the medication, but both. So tell me more about the anxiety wall, and I will get back to you on that. Okay? All right. Karen Isaacs, good to see you here. Karen said, interesting that my sniffles go away while I walk on the beach, but come back when I'm home. Okay. So I just first, let me orient people, Karen, just to what's been going on with you, just so they know the story. But Karen is, she worked with Sarno a long time ago and got significantly better. This is mostly in relation to migraine headaches. But she then, in recent years, has made a lot of gains through various people in the mind-body community, myself being one of them. And we're now working, especially, we first worked on bringing down doubt. When you're working in my columns, the very first thing you do is if doubt is there, you must bring down doubt. And Karen, I think we did that pretty quickly, and you didn't have a ton of it because you already were so well-versed in Sarno. and had done a lot of work with Nicole Sachs as well, I believe, as well as maybe some others. But recently, you noticed a symptom, an old symptom returning, and this was the sniffles. And one of the I always look for clues when I'm trying to find out what symptoms are. Sherlock Holmes was one of my favorite things to read when I was a kid, and he was a great hero of mine, even if he's fictional. But I loved how he would look for the clues. So what I found is I kind of ended up being my own Sherlock Holmes in a way. I look for clues. And when Karen talked about the sniffles, one of the clues was that her dad used to have this all the time. These things can't be an accident. Nothing is an accident when it comes to what these clues are telling us. There's always something there. So we started looking at that. And one of the things that we got to is that this was behaving like a power column symptom. It was low level, but it was just kind of staying there. She doesn't have doubt. It's not like she's thinking, oh, maybe there's something wrong with my sinuses. She's not thinking this isn't a mind body issue. Karen, tell me if I have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure I have it right. So she's already passed the doubt. Now we're on to other functions. This coming and going, that actually is a very emotions column presentation, meaning there's onsets and upticks. And Karen's noting, when I walk on the beach, they go away. When I come back home, they come back. So what that means is there is something emotional going on. It is something to do with home. Now, how are we going to decode that? We're actually going to decode this emotions column symptom in the power column and find out what's going on with Karen in her relationship with her. We also could work directly in the emotions column and just look at, okay, is there an unconscious emotion going on? Is there something bothering you at home, or something that you feel you can't say, or something that comes up about being there? I don't know what it is, but I know there's something emotional going on. We're also going to work on power, because this symptom is not just a one-off. Emotions column symptoms tend to be more of a one-off. Oh, I had a headache this one given day. If you're having that all the time, we're going to come back and look at what's the broader picture. But we're looking at the psychology of it all. Okay, now let me see what else Karen said. She said, I have a theory. I work from home and been lazing around, feeling guilty and not as productive, and definitely think my symptoms related to my father's, as Dr. Dan said. I felt so badly for his suffering in life. Now let's see what else you said, Karen. Hold on a second. I want to know more about what you said about me not necessarily being at peace with myself. Okay, so this is something, Karen, I think you're referring to something I said in group about the power column. The power column is all about whether you're at peace with yourself. Are you aligned with who you really are? For 40 years or more, I wasn't really aligned with myself. What do I mean by that? I mean that I was working really hard to live a good life. I was working hard at pleasing other people. I was working hard at solving different situations, but I wasn't living in a way that was honoring my full experience inside. And in specific, we all have something that I call the core suffering self. What I mean by that is that we all have a variety of stories about who we are, different identities even. But we have one identity that describes the way that we've suffered most and how it impacted us. And then we have to think about what to do about it. That is the core suffering self. So, I found out, oh wow, I wasn't at peace with myself. I was always on edge. And it could be about little things. It could be like I was running late for an appointment and I spent all of my time thinking, what's this person going to think of me? I need to show them that I meant to get here on time. I need to show them I'm a good person. There was so much work. When I was more aligned with myself, I said to myself, I can not go to town on myself about this. I could just let myself show up to the appointment and trust that this person, if I trust them, is going to be fine with me. It's okay. I didn't mean to be late. I'm not inconveniencing them because I'm just going to lose time. It was a therapy session. So I wasn't inconveniencing anybody, but I was giving myself such a hard time. So I wanted to find peace with myself, even in those little ways. But Karen, what we're talking about is a broader thing. Peace with yourself about your core suffering self story. And that I always know when I'm talking to somebody, do they have that or not? Generally speaking, they don't. Very few people do. But one of the things that I work with people on is doing something called the core narrative, and that tells the story of your core suffering self. It is kind of like high speed therapy. It is designed to get you to the absolute center of how you're not at peace with yourself, with what happened to you, and to get in touch with that in ways that you did not know. I think it was a week ago, maybe it might have been 2 weeks ago, Karen. You started talking about your core narrative and thinking that it was about fearing being abandoned. And I know you remember this, but I thought it was such a poignant moment for everybody because it was, it's important and shows the kind of thing that I'm talking about here. I said to you, I don't think it's about the fear of abandonment. I think it's about being abandoned. And that's a lot of the kind of work that we do in core narrative work is we're always dancing around the edges. I knew that I was upset for instance, about my father dying when I was a baby. But what I didn't know is that I felt completely invalid for over 40 years. I tried to make up for it. I tried to be like, well, I'm not totally invalid. I'm good in this way and I'm good in this way. But I was trying to make up for it the whole time. I was not at peace with myself. So there's something like that, Karen. And it is about what this abandonment meant to you about your value. You're not valuing you as much as I want you to value you yet. I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean that as a support. But that's a big part. So of what we're going to talk about. So when you say I want to know more about what you said about me, not necessarily being at peace with myself, what I just said is part of what I want to say to you. Now I need to get your response. And this is where in group we'd have a give and take here. Of course, we're going to have it here as well, Karen, but you got to write it in and then we'll take a look. So let me know what you think about that. Okay. Now you did say a couple of other things that I want to make sure to follow up on. So you said initially Dr. Sarno helped me with back pain. I didn't get relief from, oh, okay. I see. Right. All right. So you got help from the back pain with Dr. Sarno and then didn't get relief from 43 years of migraines. And I'll say something about that in a second till I found you and Nicole. Okay. Well, I do remember that story. I'm sorry I didn't have it totally accurately, Karen, but first of all, I'm so glad that you did find us and that you kept working on it and that you got that relief. But this is also a very important kind of thing to say because there's a lot of people out there who have been suffering for a long time. And I've heard this question many times. Can I get better after all this time? Am I worse off because I've been suffering all that time? Well, guess what? Karen suffered for 43 years and she's better now. And I'm really happy about that, Karen, but we're going to keep going and take away the sniffles too. Okay, then she said, I know 100% it's TMS. TMS is tension myositis syndrome. That's what Sarno called mind-body issues. I went to TMS therapists referred by Sarno 20 years ago, and they went away. Okay. And then Karen said in response to what I was saying about power, this feels right. See you tomorrow on group. Okay, that sounds good, Karen. But yes, let's think about, in terms of peace with the self, we've got to zero in on what is your story? And I'm going to help you tell it. This is one of the reasons the groups are particularly useful as well, is I get a chance to help you craft this. And it's not because I know what is real. You're going to know what's real. But I have a way of saying things that tend to bring out information. And sometimes it's because I say the wrong thing. I'm not afraid to say the wrong thing because it's just, it's like a lump of clay I'm giving you. And I'm saying, is this it? And you might say, that's right, but that's not. And we shape it together. But it's all from your intuition or your understanding of you, coupled with my insights and way of understanding you through your symptoms primarily. So we're going to find out more about it. That's what we're going to do. And it is going to bring you peace with yourself. And Karen, I'll tell you more about my story as needed to show you what I mean about how to get that that peace. Okay, Dimashishkov, good to see you here. I just wanted to come back to Full Flourish. I didn't see you. Hopefully you didn't post a question because I'm not seeing it here. But I'm going to take a stab at your question anyway, even though you didn't tell me what anxiety wall is. Hopefully I had it right. But the way you need to get better from any symptom is to understand what's happening. So if the anxiety is like kind of always there, I'd want to go straight to the doubt column. I'd want to look and say, okay, what's happening here that's keeping you in the same place? Only thinking keeps you in the same place. Emotions change all the time. But if you're noting that, no, I don't have it all the time, but when it comes, it's really hard. That sounds more like an emotions column issue. And then I'd want to look in the emotions column and do the work there. So, and I'm going to describe how to do the work in each column in a second. Um, the power column is about other things. It's about your relationship with you and what I was saying to Karen. That usually comes after you've brought doubt down first, then discovered the emotions. Then we move over to the power column. So we can talk about that, but in terms of what the work is, if it is kind of more coming and going, then what I'd want to do, this is the work of the emotions column, is develop usually between 6 to 12 themes is a good number. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that usually helps describe the various ways that you get upset in life, the things that can set you off. And it's kind of like a shorthand menu that will help you figure out what's happening in the moment. Because in an emotions column symptom, the timing always matters. If it happened right then, that's when you know something was going on right then, the instant the symptom started. But if this is a symptom that's always there, that anxiety, then I'd want to look at the doubt. And the way we work with doubt in the doubt column is we observe, articulate, and counter doubts. Observing a doubt means just to see that it is a doubt, because otherwise we think it's the truth. We fall into the thinking and we're not even questioning it. So we have to observe the doubt. Then we articulate it. We get it put into words. What are you worried about this anxiety? What does it make you think? What are you telling yourself about why it might always be there? And of course, I don't know whether it's always there or not, but I'm taking you through the basics. And then we're going to counter. Once it's well articulated, we're going to counter with good science and good logic until you feel like, yeah, I actually can see this changing. I got to say more about it. I'm just meeting you for the first time tonight, virtually. And, but there's information here. And I want to encourage you, email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org, if you want to find out more about it. With respect to the antidepressant medication, that's mostly going to be a doubt column issue. It's a trigger. You're worried about it. And I got to help you see why you can do it. Maybe it even helps to know that I did it. But we can talk about it. I can help you with both. Okay. So that was my attempt to answer you. And hopefully that's helpful. Please follow up as needed. Okay. Thanks so much for your question. All right. Jane Smith, thank you for your patience. Jane says, hi, Dr. Dan and everyone. Thanks for being here again and for working on your book. Do you know how Scott is? So I don't know how Scott is offhand. Hopefully he's here, but if he is here, please chime in, Scott. But I follow a lot of people in terms of their stories, and I am very encouraged by what happens when they engage with the columns. A huge part of it is simply bring down the doubt before anything. If you do nothing else, if you don't understand what the system is, it's going to take a while to figure out what I'm saying about these things, the number one thing you can always do is try to bring down the doubt. Now, there are three main doubts, actually. I call them the levels of doubt. One is this a mind-body issue or not? That's what I call level 1 doubt. It's the basic doubt. The next one is, okay, I believe this is mind-body, but I'm not sure that my symptom is the same as others or masterable, or maybe there's something weird about it, or maybe it's a mix, which actually has a little level 1 doubt in it if you're not clear it's mind-body. But if you're clear it's mind-body and still think, the symptom's different, that's level 2 doubt. Migraines is a good example of that. A lot of people feel like that's going to be a harder symptom. And some of that is backed up by, I'll put in quotes, experience. The reason I put it in quotes is it is experience. It's what people have experienced. So it is data, but it's not experience fully in that what happens when you change your thinking. They've never had a chance. So that's why I put it in quotes. So those are some things that we can work on to get you guys to different places in understanding. So you were saying, do you know where? I don't know how Scott is, but as people are working, they're working in these columns, and if they're bringing down doubt, they're going to get success. Now, Jane did said, thanks for working on your book. It's coming along. I'm about to finish chapter 8's last main edit. I will go over the book one more time once it's done, but I'm going to dive into chapter 9 next week. I'm hoping this book will be done by the end of the year and out to you in January. So I'm going to keep you posted on it all. Thanks for bringing that up, though, Jane. Okay. Jane then said, would you say your columns are a vehicle for clarity and then peace or calmness? And that, quote, calmness is what heals TMS. Great question. I would say that the columns are absolutely a vehicle for clarity. They are supposed to describe what's happening. I needed to know what was happening. It bothered me that I didn't know. And I love Sarno, and he saved my life. But I still had so many questions, and that was very hard to feel at peace. It was very hard to feel calm. Okay, so I'll say that first. Then I want to, slide over to the second part of this question. Peace and calmness are part of it. I would say peace is more of what I'm looking for than calmness, though, because peace doesn't always mean calm. Peace more means aligned with the self. You could be aligned with yourself when you're really mad or when you're really sad. It's not always good feeling, but if you're aligned with you, you won't feel ill at ease with yourself. You won't feel like there's something I'm supposed to do differently. You'll feel at rest with you, even when you're in the thick of, you could be in a rage, but you can say, I got my back on this. I know why I feel this way. I get it. It's like you get yourself. So this idea that calmness is what heals TMS. I understand your question about that, Jane. I think that there are various theories that I've heard described about what cures mind-body issues. One of them is that it's always emotional and it's always anger. And what I have found is that's a very helpful tool, and that's right some of the time, but it doesn't always get the trick done at all. To me, that's half of a column. That's half of the emotions column. It's more to the emotions column, and then it leaves out doubt and power entirely. Then you've got people who say, oh, this is something called central sensitization or polyvagal theory, where your central nervous system has gotten revved up and you just can't calm it down. And usually when people are describing that, as far as I can understand what they're saying, is they kind of think that the apparatus has gotten out of control and it just needs to be calmed down. I don't subscribe to that because I think that you're revved up for a reason, and you will calm down when you're given reason to calm down. And that is usually brought on by clarity. So clarity brings the calmness, but the calmness is a byproduct of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you answers so that you can actually feel calm, and then you just naturally calm down. Calmness helps. It does help with symptoms, but it shouldn't be the main goal. The main goal should be clarity and peace, those two things. There's also, people talk about neural pathways where, we've learned certain things. And the learning needs to be unlearned, essentially. Now, I don't disagree with that entirely, but I think that's also a byproduct. I think that when we learn new things and things click into place, when we get clarity, you automatically learn. So you don't have to rewire. So I don't think you need to work for calmness. It's good to have calmness, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is understanding the clarity and then the peace. Jane, let me know if that makes sense of your question, if you need to know more. Okay. All right. Dorisa says, how do you counter the thoughts of 2 steps forward and 3 steps back? Okay. Fascinating question. I'm going to answer it one way first, Dorisa. I may need to get your feedback first, next, and then we'll go from there. The very first thing I would do when I hear you say 2 steps forward and 3 steps back is I hear doubt in the air, because this is a narrative you're telling yourself where things are getting worse. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. That sounds like things are getting worse. I'm not saying that critically. I am saying it actually in fierce support of you, because I don't think this is true. If that's what you're thinking is going on with you, this is the kind of thing that doubt convinces you. Yeah. You could take steps forward, but you'll always take more back. That's the exact kind of thing that doubt will try to tell you. And so the first thing I would want to do is call that into question. So in the doubt column, observe, articulate, and counter. First thing I'm doing is observing. I want to ask you, is that actually true? Are you actually taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, or is this doubt? It's the very first thing I would do. Okay. Now, next, if you've observed it and you're like, okay, I see that that's a doubt, but I'm worried about it. I think that that is what's going on and I need to look at it. Observing just means we've opened the door to looking at it, but now let's articulate it. Now we would ask you, why do you think that's happening? And whatever that is, whatever your answer is, that's the doubt we're working with. We're getting it put into words so that we can work with it. It's got to be put into words. Then we'll counter it. Okay. So I hear you saying, how do you counter the thoughts of 2 steps forward and 3 steps back? So I'm going to pretend first. This may be true, by the way, but just for my own purposes and to help you to answer your question best, I'm going to assume you've already observed it. You know this is a doubt, and in fact, I think you have because you wouldn't be asking this question if you hadn't observed some form of it. But hopefully, I've helped you observe it even more. Now I'm gonna articulate a version of this, and I don't know if this applies or not. If we were in group together, we could hash this out together and articulate a question together. But I'm going to do it here, and then we'll see what you think. So you might be saying to yourself, "I do make progress, but I go back further than the progress that I've made." Okay, that's an articulated doubt. It's similar to what you said, but it's even more articulated. Now, I would here's a way I would counter it, especially if it's actually not true. I would probably say something along these lines. Is it possible that I perceive the steps back as a bigger deal and more upsetting, and I'm not giving myself credit for the steps forward? Is it possible that I degrade the steps forward and play up the steps back? That's a possible counter. Hold on, Teresa had a follow up here. This will give me some answers. She says, because there are so many days when I feel great and then I have flares. Okay. I have a particular counter for that. So, Teresa, I'm going to say this counter, but as always, anything that I say, you got to follow up because it doesn't, I mean, I have helpful information, but it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. You're going to go on thinking whatever you think unless you are convinced of something different. So now I'm going to articulate another doubt that I hear, which is I have these days when I feel great and then I have flares. So that means that I can't make the full progress that I want to make, that I don't think I can get where I need to go because every time I start to feel good, I have a flare. I don't know if every time, I may be overstating it, but I'm showing you for effect the kind of thing that I would be looking for in articulating. If we were in group together, we would smooth that out together, but let's go with what I said for now. Now I'm going to counter it. Countering always involves explaining in a way that makes sense of it. So let me see if this works. This is the kind of story I hear many, many times, Dorisa, where people get flare-ups when they're feeling good. Why does that happen? It doesn't happen for everybody. It doesn't happen all the time. But why does it happen so frequently that enough people say it all the time? Here is why. This is a power column issue. In the power column, we're working to become aligned with ourselves. We're working to let ourselves be happy. Most of us are not used to that. Most of us have not lived lives where we got to be happy or expected to be happy. And what ends up happening is we actually have a conflict about being happy, about letting things even feel good. It doesn't feel safe to many of us. I don't know how much that applies to you, but I do know that what you're describing is definitely a power column issue. If the symptoms get worse when you feel good, that's a power column issue, 100%. So we need to think about what might be going on in the power column that doesn't let you feel good. And I'm going to give you a little window into my own power column experience because it will be a good example. For me to feel fully good, I needed to go ahead and be independent. And be more fully independent. And what do I mean by that? It wasn't about behavior or how things looked in the outside world. It was about in here. I needed to get to a place where I didn't take my value from what my family thought. I only take it from what I think. And I'm not perfect that way. I'm not perfect in any way, but I'm not perfect in that way. I can get caught up in what people think sometimes, and my family as well. But I often can return to a place of power. That's knocking me out of power when I'm feeling that that my value can be determined by someone else. That's out of power. When I feel my value is determined by me, I'm back in power. So what I'm hearing is you start to feel good, and there's something that feels, I don't know if this is okay. Well, when I entered power, it wasn't all good news, actually. It was good news overall. I'm glad I have done it. I'm living a much happier life that way. But there was a sadness to it because I was moving on. It actually felt like some people were dying in a way. The kind of relationship I was longing for and hoping would eventually happen to correct all the issues I had in my early growing up and throughout my life. I really wanted them to get resolved, but I had to choose my own power and my own independence and my own journey over that. And there were ways in which that was very lonely and scary and sad. So it's not so easy to choose power. And Dorisa, I think that's how we would describe that. Now, I want to jump back for a second because you were asking, how do you counter this doubt? If I've described it well and it rings true to you, then we've crushed that doubt pretty badly because you're not going to be able to think anymore, oh, well, there's no reason for that. This is not happening because there's some kind of problem that I'm not going to get past. This is happening for a reason I can understand. When you get that clarity, that's when the doubt comes down, and that's when you can start moving towards peace, like we were talking about with Jane. Dorisa, let me know if that made sense of your question and if it answered it to your satisfaction. Okay, then Jane says, aha, at ease, in quote, with ourself. Thanks. So clarity and, quote, peace at ease results in the healing of TMS. Absolutely. 100%. Sarno got me a lot of clarity. He got me way more clarity than I had ever had before, not just about mind-body symptoms, but actually clarified all kinds of things about life. I never felt so well described as I was in reading Sarno, and that surprised me. I just thought I was trying to cure back pain. But then I got a description that described me in more detail, and I was like, oh, things make more sense now. So clarity is that first step. That's bringing down doubt, by the way. That's why we work on doubt first. And then everything flows towards power. We need the emotions column to understand our onsets and upticks and the ups and downs of the symptoms. But ultimately, you're getting clarity, so you bring down your doubt, and then you're getting peace. Everything flows towards power so that you can find the way to live at ease with yourself, just like you said, Jane. Okay. Dorisa said, yes, that makes sense. I hope that is of help, Dorisa. And since it does make sense, what I would say to you is we could do some work. We can do it in the Q&As. If you want to come to the groups, we can do that. But what I would want to do with you is work on that core narrative to get a sense of, well, what's happening in your power column? What has your life been like? And how can we see how you've been not at peace with yourself so that you can be at peace with yourself? And that will make it easier to go ahead and move forward. And then when you feel good, you could just feel good. And when I step into power, I do just feel good, but I also do feel the sadness, or at least I used to. It dies down. It's like you're mourning your losses in a way. We're more accustomed as a society to mourning losses when people actually die, but we're not accustomed to mourning losses about things we wanted and never could get, especially while they're alive. So those are some interesting things to think about in the fact that we're mourning more than just when people die. Okay, Jane then said, say my extreme driving anxiety triggers my abdominal pain. When I get out of the car, should I just relax and wait till the pain calms down, even if it takes several hours? Okay, I'm going to take a stab at this, Jane, but this is another one, as is pretty much every question, where I'll answer it and you may need to do a follow-up. Okay, so You're saying your extreme driving anxiety triggers abdominal pain. When I get out of the car, should I just relax and wait till the pain calms down? Actually, here's what I would want to do first. Even before you get out of the car, I would want to be thinking from an emotional standpoint about what is this about? What is that driving anxiety about? We want to see if you can get an emotions column solution to this because it's a sudden uptick. It's an onset or an uptick. So there's actually something about it. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to give you an example of the kind of thing that you can look for. It could be that anxiety makes you feel really alone. And then boom, the pain sets in. I don't know if that's true, but that would be the kind of thing to look for. Because if you find there's a correlation, you could say, you know what, that abdominal pain is usually about aloneness, feeling lonely. If that's right, you just gained a way to master that symptom in the moment, and you don't even need to deal with the trigger or it not calming down or the worry about getting out of the car or any of it. Doubt won't even set in if you've got the emotional understanding and you nail it and the symptom goes. You won't even need to deal with doubt. Okay. So that would be the first step, Jane, is sit in the car, think about those emotions. And by the way, you don't have to do it for very long. You may have to go inside. But I would try it for a minute or two and see what you can come up with. And let's start to think about what is the emotions column theme that's active there. Okay. Then I want to make sure you don't have doubt. And I say this all the time, but really you want to target doubt first if it's there. If you're really scared about this, we got to bring down doubt even before you go looking for that emotion. But sometimes looking for that emotion is a way to bring down doubt. It gives you a sense that you can handle this. It's not going to be bad. And you're not stuck with the symptom. So lots of ways to do it. We want to bring down doubt and we want to get emotional understanding. Okay. But let's say you're not getting that. And when you get out of the car, you have that pain. Well, you're saying wait till the pain calms down. I don't want any of you waiting. You don't have to wait. You can do work on it. And when things are lingering, you want to do doubt column work. So I would want to look at that and figure out what doubt is there. Why am I thinking it's going to take a while to calm down? I understand that could be just historically. It could be the way it was, but the way it was doesn't have to stay that way because if you change how you're thinking, it could change what happens in your body. So let's get this doubt out in the open. Let's figure out what you're saying to yourself. Okay. You're not stuck with any of this. You can do emotions column work to get it in the moment. You can do doubt column work to get it in the moment, but the columns are all about in the moment. You never have to wait. It's okay if you do or if you have to, but you don't or you feel you have to, but you don't have to do that. You can do the columns work. That's what it's there for. Okay, then Jane said, fear of getting into an accident and being incapacitated or disabled or dying. Mainly fear of death, I think. Okay, that's very well identified. Now I would want to ask you, does it reduce the symptom when you are thinking about it? I don't know if you've even had a chance to do that. I know you're aware of the emotion, but I don't know if in the moment you've been able to use it or if doubt takes over so strongly that you're like, oh my God, this is, or it just hurts so much. But if you can think about these themes, not only while you're sitting in the car, but even while you get up, that can help. I often say it doesn't matter what you do. It matters what you're thinking while you do it. You could get up from that car and be thinking about incapacitation, disability, dying. I know it's not pleasant topics, but by bringing it to your conscious mind, it may not have to get expressed in physicality. So that would be one of the first things that I would try. Now, if that doesn't work, and let's say you're able to reduce your doubt enough, but it's still not taking care of this entirely, that's where we would do power column work. We'd go over and we'd say, how does this fit with your core narrative? How does this fit with how you've suffered? And when you see that, that fits with the clarity we were just talking about. When you get that clarity, you'll know how that might dictate the various things you might want to do in your life and in response. Okay, Jane, let me know if that made sense or did the trick for you. All a work in progress. This is an ongoing dialogue. That's why we need the Q&A. That's why we need the groups. That's why we need the seminars. This is an ongoing dialogue to get you convinced of the things you need to be convinced about, and fully convinced, not just telling yourself you're convinced or saying the words. If you don't believe it, it doesn't help. Okay, Patty Martin, good to see you here. Patty says, Dan's columns have given my peace and clarity. The columns tell it all. Thank you, Patty. It's high praise, and yet I know it's actually true because I've talked to you about this, and I've seen it in action. And you and I just know we've talked about these things. You've seen it from the inside out, and yeah, I'm so pleased that you have gotten that peace and clarity. I think the clarity usually comes first, but then the peace comes in. And one of the things I love about the columns is, to me, they really do tell all. They are describing how human beings work. They're not just a tool to use, though they are that. They're also just describing, how does a human being actually work? And that's ultimately how I got them, is I just looked at how was I working? And then I started to look around once I figured it out and said, it seems like everybody works that way. Not only that, it works this way for symptoms, but it also works this way for psychology. So I've completely changed how I would practice in therapy, because the columns tell you about your mind, not just how it plays out in symptoms, but how it's playing out in general. Thank you for the kind words, Patty. Okay, then she said, I have seen it for myself and others in our group. Yes. Another benefit to the group, actually, is you get to see it happening for other people. Sometimes it's even easier to see when you're hearing the story of another person and you're seeing it unfold, or you're seeing an interaction between me and them and how this works, because you're not as, your doubt isn't quite as active. So um, I'm just so pleased at how this is all going and the community that we're building. Thank you for the kind words, Patty, and everybody else who shared all of these kind words. We will keep it up. I'm going to be here same time next week. It's Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And the whole goal, always, in any conversation you're having, in any endeavor, whether you're reading a book or taking my seminars or talking to me or talking to each other, always focus on, am I understanding more? Am I understanding more about how I work, about how people work, about how symptoms work, and about how the columns work? So we'll keep it up, and it was a pleasure as always. I look forward to seeing you same time next week. Okay, take care, everybody.